And the last vision I had, I was 90 years old. Okay. I was old. I was still like, you know, fit, and everything was like, it was sweet. And I was sitting there, this old man rocking in a chair, and I was looking down. We were at what I would say was my house, and I was on like my balcony on the second floor, and I was looking down in my rocking chair just like this. And I saw my kids, you know, they were like older, you know, 60.
Yeah.
I saw my kids, I saw my grandkids, and I saw my great grandkids just all out there playing, huge family. And during this vision, I looked to my right. I'm getting chills thinking about it. But I looked to my right, and it was Megan, my wife.
Yeah.
And she reached and she touched my hand, and she smiled, and she looked at me and she said, "It's all going to be worth it."
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Hustle on Purpose. My name is GT Eichert, and today we have a very special guest, Dr. Cam Daniels. Dr. Cam, how are you?
I'm blessed, man. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you, brother.
I'm so excited that you came out. It was great getting to meet you the other day and talk to you. We had a great conversation. It was like, man, we got to put this on the podcast because there's so many. You're doing so many awesome things, and we just want to highlight that and kind of talk about it today. So. For people that don't know you, give us a little intro. Tell us about yourself and where you've been and what you do.
Yep. So my name is Dr. Cam Daniels, and me personally, I stand for a mission and vision where I utilize my God-given authenticity, inspiration, and education to provide people the ability to live beyond expectations.
Wow.
When I'm originally from Michigan, and so that's why I kind of have like a weird northerner accent.
Do you say y'all?
I said, oh, I'm learning to say y'all.
You're learning?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm learning to say y'all.
Yeah.
You know, being originally from Michigan and then coming here to Arkansas, I saw a missing gap. And, you know, I saw, especially in my specific realm of specialties, I saw where Arkansas really is not the healthiest state. And if you actually look at the U.S. News and World Survey, we're ranked number 49th in public health out of 50.
Well, you know the state motto of Arkansas?
I heard it the other day.
Thank God for Mississippi.
Thank God for Mississippi. Yeah, I heard that the other day.
It's so terrible. But
Yep,
like,
thank God for Mississippi.
Yeah.
And I was like, I should just tagline that.
Yeah.
But you know, when I came here from Michigan to Arkansas, I really felt a strong calling to obviously do something here in Arkansas well beyond just the walls of my clinic.
Yeah.
And so from a clinical mission and vision, my clinical mission and vision is to make Arkansas the happiest, healthiest state on the entire planet.
I love that. It's one of the things that I loved about talking to you because you're, you know, not a native Arkansan,
Right?
But you mentioned things that made it clear that you've fallen in love with the state since you've been here.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, just welcome.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you because I think to some extent we all need help there, right? Living a happier, healthier life.
Yeah.
And as a state as a whole, like for sure.
And so in public health, like I said, we're number 49th, but if you look at overall health, okay, so which is healthcare, if you look at overall health, we're actually number 47th. And so we're still,
okay.
Yeah. But it's still very
bad.
Yeah, very low. Guess what number one is, if you had to guess?
For public health?
Yeah, for both public health and
healthcare.
Yep.
So the state is number one?
Yeah, so the
both?
state is number one for both. Once I say it, you're gonna be like, of course.
Of course. Oh man.
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Yeah, Hawaii.
Okay.
And what's interesting is, you know, I want to go from number 49th in public health to number one. And I want to go from number 47th in healthcare to number one, which means we have to beat Hawaii. Now, unfortunately, I don't see Arkansas anytime soon splitting off and getting its own island with beautiful, you know, mountains and huge
and the
volcanoes
revenue.
And stuff.
The revenue per capita is probably like plays a big part in it.
Oh yeah. And it's like for us, big thing that I know is I can't do it on my own. And it's well beyond just the realm of healthcare because there's every single person in this entire state that has a specific calling, like you, like me, like other people that I see, where it's, you know, with what you do, you're making people happier and healthier, right? You know,
hopefully,
yeah. I mean, that's the goal ultimately.
Not as tangible as you, but yeah, in a way, hopefully.
Yeah. And with us, you know, to be able to help kind of perpetuate that mission and vision is something I'm very, very passionate about.
Yes, I love that. It's, it's weird because I kind of made the connection there to the financial side of things.
Yeah.
And we've had a guest recently. Her name's Elva, and she runs a podcast called The Simplicity Project. And it's very different than your mission, but in a way, she kind of talks about, it's kind of health and wellness, mental health, psychology stuff all in one, but she talks about these 5 pillars and how you really need success across all 5. It's like, mental, financial, spiritual,
relational, I'm guessing.
Maybe. Yeah. I'm going to forget the 5, but it's, I think part of it in Arkansas is a big part of the mental and physical health ties to the financial side of things.
Absolutely.
Because we're also, there's a lot of poverty in Arkansas.
Yep.
There's parts of Little Rock that are labeled as like food deserts. There's nowhere within a certain mile radius to get things like fresh produce. We're in the fast food belt. We're in the Bible Belt, but there's also like the fast food belt, right? It's wild. And all that, it's just interesting how it all ties together. So in my mind, you kind of have to focus on specific areas of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so from in a clinical setting, I help manage and operate the Specific Chiropractic Centers here in Arkansas.
Yeah.
In Little Rock, we also have one in Hot Springs as well. So we have 2 clinics, and then our vision is 4 to 5 clinics in the state of Arkansas. So that way every single Arkansan has access to getting their nervous system checked. But when you look at that, I'm limited to the amount of people that I can serve with my hands, right? Which is why we need more docs doing this work, which is why we're heavily involved, not only in schools, but also on a political level in the realm of chiropractic, to be able to get people involved with the specific work that we do, because it's very unique and tailored. But I actually have a separate initiative. It's called the Happier, Healthier Arkansas Initiative.
Okay.
And this initiative has, there's me. I'm the one that I would say founded it because of my mission of Happier, Healthier Arkansas.
Yeah.
We have this, she's amazing, Lauren Robertson, Tharwit Lovett, Christy Jones, Susan Ortiz. We have a lot of people who are heavily involved, and other practitioners or holistic practitioners that are involved to help push this mission of a Happier, Healthier Arkansas, because I know that I'm limited to the amount of people I can serve with my hands.
Right.
Right.
So what is you use the word initiative.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Yep. So when you look at that term initiative, essentially we have a Happier, Healthier Arkansas vision, right? That's the clinical vision of the Specific Chiropractic Centers, is to make Arkansas the happiest, healthiest state in the entire planet. The initiative is a group of practitioners that want to push legislation and things of that nature to help create access. For example, in food deserts, I'm very close with the lady who's actually responsible for sidewalks in Russellville. Because they didn't have access to sidewalks. And so now that they have sidewalks, Russellville, they're actually to walk more and things of that nature. And so we want to be able to, the initiative's there to help push different laws and legislation inside of the state to make it happier and healthier. And the cool thing about the initiative too is that every single one of us has our own network. And so since we all have our own network, we can all come together to help push this vision of a happier, healthier Arkansas.
Yeah, because you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a huge vision, right? I mean, getting Arkansas happier and healthier than a state like Hawaii, which has a lot of natural benefits that are hard to overcome when you're a landlocked mid-American state, right? Arkansas has a lot of beautiful benefits, but
so I moved here.
It's very different than Hawaii, right? So yeah, I think you've got the right mindset there of aligning yourself with other like-minded individuals that have the same passion and different networks to help push the vision, right? Finding affordable, quality property and casualty insurance can be a pain, but Little Rock-based JTS has the protection real estate and property owners need. From liability and property coverage to plans for loss of rent, renovation projects, and more. Just give Matt Barger a call at 501 501-231-1611. He even has markets for short-term rentals like Airbnb, as well as vacant, owner-financed, and rent-to-own properties. Call Matt today at 501-231-1611 or email him at matt@jtsfs.com.
And that's why James, when I was talking to James had to connect
James
us.
Alley from Guillermo's.
Yep. He had to connect us because he was like, there's this guy doing this in the finance realm, in the real estate realm. Like, I don't know what that connection looks like, but I need to connect you guys. And then when we sat down, I was like, I told James afterwards, I was like, after we sat down, you and me, I told James, I was like, you nailed it.
Yeah.
You nailed it. This guy's a stud.
Yeah. I felt the same way.
And what's interesting about Arkansas is the natural state, but yet we're the natural state and we have so many different things to do outside. I mean, here in Little Rock, right? Pinnacle, Rattlesnake Ridge, the parks. Oh my goodness. We have a lot of parks in Arkansas.
Countless.
Yeah.
You can't
but
name them all.
We're the natural state, but we're also one of the most prescribed states. So it doesn't really, kind of make sense where it's like, if we are so interested in a natural means, then why are we kind of looking to pharmaceuticals to be the answer? Now, I want to make a disclaimer. I have nothing against pharmaceuticals whatsoever. They've saved lives.
I'm glad they exist.
Yeah. They've saved lives. But me personally, I just believe that we should start from a more conservative realm and then work our way to surgery or to drugs, because a lot of the stuff can be taken care of on a conservative realm before we actually push to the drugs or surgeries. I see it a lot in migraine cases. I can
imagine. Well, yeah, and that's so much of that, at least to me, just appears to be, it's a cultural thing, and it's becoming more and more just ingrained in our culture. We want the shortcut. We want the 6-minute abs.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
for sure. For sure.
Stuff like that sells because we want the easy way. Maybe to cure your migraine, you need
Topamax, topiramate, Amitrex, Amavig.
Drink more water,
right?
Or, like they're. I agree with you 100%. Try some of these natural progressive steps before skipping immediately to I can just pay this and have somebody dig around in my brain and maybe it'll fix it.
Right.
I also may be paralyzed for the rest of my life.
My big story behind that is, because my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 5. Okay. And I remember the day she was diagnosed. I remember where I was sitting on the couch. She was sitting in the bedroom. And I remember when she got the call, I remember her face when she found out. And it was just my mom and I don't know where my sister was now I think about it, but, it was just my mom and I from what I remember. The doctors gave her 3 months to live. Okay. And in those 3 months, she fought like hell and I found her journals and I still have them to this day. In these journals, she wrote another day, or she would say, Lord, another day with my children, Lord, another day with my children, Lord, another day with my children. And she wrote it every single day for 5 years straight until she died.
Wow.
So they gave her 3 months to live and she ended up living 5 years. And so it wasn't until after, now I didn't know I wanted to become a doctor right at that time. Interestingly enough, my mom.
How old were you?
I was 5 years old when she was diagnosed. I was 10 years old when she passed away.
Goodness.
Yep.
Man.
And my mom, I grew up doing something like this growing up. I would have never even thought of it because I was so antisocial, because all I knew was go to school, come home and take care of my sick mother. Go to school, come home and take care of my sick mother. And so seeing the treatment that my mom received from other doctors, and then seeing the treatment that I provided for her, when I was 5 to 10 years old, my mom always called me Dr. Cam because of the way that I cared for her, right? So when I realized and knew that I wanted to become a doctor, I told myself, I want to make sure that I can provide the premium type of care possible for people, for them to not have to experience something like my mother did. Now, my mom never received the type of care that I did today. Okay. But what gets me out of bed every morning, what gets me into seats like this, what gets me onto speaking on stages, what gets me to see patients in the clinic is the thought of what would my mom's life have looked like if she received this type of care that I provide today. And I don't know the answer to that. And so I want to make sure that, people have access to this care, so that way they don't have to ask that same question. And so the genesis of the Happier, Healthier Arkansas really came from me thinking of like having a happier, healthier mother throughout that time period. And it was really a big period for me to be able to see what the human mind is capable of, because all these different people, right? All these different people, like, and you probably see this in your own space. Oh, you can't do that. You can't scale. You can't see that many people. You can't see those many patients. And what's interesting about it is it's the same thing that the doctors told my mother. They told her, you only have 3 months to live. And she was like, no, I don't. No, I don't. And she just hammered through up until her last breath. And the reason why she wanted to do it is because she wanted to have memories, or she wanted us to have memories of her. And because of her commitment, because of her prayers, because of her ability to live and the change and the shift of the mindset and the physiology behind it, she ended up living 5 extra years. And I do have amazing memories of my mother because of that. So that was kind of the, you know, that was the genesis of essentially where all this came from, where Dr. Cam came from. Yeah.
That is a powerful why, you know.
Yeah.
People always mention, like, what is your why? Why do you do what you do? And you know, it's like I've heard things like the power of your why will kind of dictate how far you'll go with something.
Right.
So when I hear a story like that and you articulate exactly why you do what you do, it makes me have very little doubt that you'll, you know, push this initiative and get the goal that you're after. Yeah. You know,
because, you know, it with anything, like, you know, you understand this, but you have to have a vision, right? You have to have a mission and you have to have a vision. And then those are what drive your core values. And those core values are what help you dictate the decisions that you make. And so essentially kind of going down that process, you know, having a mission, having a vision, and having those core values, dictating the decisions based off those core values will keep you on the track to get you to where you want to go. And I've been blessed to see how things have grown, see how things have been progressed. I've only been in Arkansas here just over 2 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I've only been in Arkansas just over 2 years. And to think that I'm even sitting here, you know, on this podcast, having this conversation, like, for me, it's amazing to see the fruits of it, because what we see is 2.5 years, or about 2.5 years in Arkansas. Right. But what we don't see is the, you know, 25 plus years of essentially forging to get to this point, and most importantly, get to where we're going.
Right. Yeah. Right. Like it takes 40 years to become an overnight success kind of thing.
Yep. Totally. Totally.
It's
That's funny.
Yeah, man, I love all of that and all that you're working on. My dad passed away from cancer when I was 12. So we have very different backstories, but there's something, this is a total tangent, but there's something interesting about just the right amount of like childhood trauma.
That's funny. Yes. I agree.
Like, it's weird because like you may have had this thought as well. But like, it's weird that like so many Disney movies start off with like a parent dying. So many superhero like origin stories start off with, you know, a parent, or like, you know,
an Uncle Ben.
Yeah. With great power comes great responsibility, like kind of thing. And I've had this conversation with other people because as a parent now, I'm like, I want to protect my children from anything and everything that I can. But also, how do I make it just tough enough for them? Like, I don't necessarily want to die.
Right. Isn't that something?
But how do I make it just traumatic enough? Like, in a healthy way.
Yep. Dude, that's so interesting that you bring that up. That's awesome. Because for me, I was like, you know, and my mom's story is just one of the many, but the stuff that I've gone through growing up has definitely forged and shaped me into the person that I am today. If you look at other research, majority of the research that is done about this specific thing that we're talking about, if you look at generations, or generational wealth is what the research that they look at. Okay. When you look at generational wealth, the research shows that it was like 80% of generational wealth by the third generation will disappear.
Gone.
Yeah. And I really got to thinking, I did a talk on this not too long ago, but I got to thinking, what is it that keeps these generations going? And Craig Rochelle, he has a Craig Rochelle leadership podcast. He talks about Gen 1, Gen 2, and Gen 3. And identifying what generation that we're in. I know for me, I'm the first generation for a lot in my family.
Right.
First generation of, addiction or no addiction. First generation of, financial freedom. First generation of doctor, right?
Yeah.
So I understand there's a lot of responsibility there, but I was thinking of like, how do I make it to where not only my children, but my children's children and my great grandchildren can continue the legacy way past us? Because there is a little bit of suffering is good. A little bit of suffering is good. And I think there's a lot of growth that comes from suffering. Most importantly, doing things that makes you uncomfortable. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Which you don't do when you're third generation wealth and everything's handed to you. What is the, strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create bad times. Bad times create strong men. It's kind of like that, right? It's
the cycle.
Yeah. And it's, how do you combat that?
Something we're trying to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
you and I both, brother.
I think the only way, historically that you're typically talking about like massive amounts of wealth is like you completely take control of it away from the future generations.
Right. And, one thing that I was thinking about regarding this, especially in the realm of wealth, like putting myself in the position to where if my kids or grandchildren are ever in need, that, we're able to provide that. But not just like showering them. I don't know. This is something my dad always told me. My dad's like, there's not a rule book to this.
Yeah.
There's no rule book to it, man.
The most common question I get asked is, GT, how do I get started in real estate investing? And my go-to answer is to go talk to Robbie Cole at Benchmark Home Loans. Robbie will help you figure out the best loan option for you in your current situation and help you with long-term planning as well. He gives out free advice 7 days a week, and he would love to help you. So if you're one of the people that's been afraid to start that conversation, I encourage you to stop right now and call 501-777-9995 so that you can start your investing journey or take it to the next level. Once again, that's Robbie Cole at Benchmark Home Loans, 501-777-9995. Be nice if there was.
Yeah.
Well, I think the issue spurs from the fact that you can hand down tangible things like assets, cash, whatever, but it's much more difficult to hand down things like character and values and faith.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
I talked to a guy. Oh my goodness, I can't remember his name. He wrote a book. He's in Arkansas. He's an Arkansas guy, and he's amazing. And he's been a estate planning attorney for forever. But his firm focuses on legacy planning, and it's a really interesting process because I've sat down with a few different estate planning attorneys, and the process is pretty typical. It's like, it's like going into a doctor for a set procedure. They have their like checklist, right? And you go down and you check symptoms and they poke and prod you, whatever. And they have a set list of things they go through and they ask you these questions. But I really found this legacy, and I can get you the guy's name.
That's interesting. I like that.
Because they take you through a whole process, and they do all the standard, what assets do you have? Where do you want them to go? We need to put this in a trust. They create that kind of stuff. But they do a lot of non-conventional things that it takes a lot of work on your part, but they're big on like, what are traditions you want to continue? What are things we can put in place, to make sure that, now that I've gotten multiple kids, I'm an only child. So like my parents' estate planning stuff's fairly straightforward. It's like,
right.
I'm an only child. My mother's an only child, very small family. Like, after my dad passed away, my Thanksgiving dinners were 4 people at like the breakfast table. Right. But it's like, how do I want to leave my kids the world, right?
Yeah, totally.
But it won't mean anything to me if they're not still getting together for Thanksgiving dinner, right? Like
we hold very similar values.
I'd rather them get nothing and be close to each other.
Yep.
Absolutely. I've carried this mentality over from, like, I had a football coach, outstanding football coach, Kevin Kelly, back when I was in high school. And we would go through these like grueling summer practices, right? And it's 120 degrees on the turf. It's brutal. Oh, yeah. And he very much had this mentality of, I want to make everybody here despise me today. And through that process of making 60 guys on this football team hate me, you all get this common enemy and it like binds you together.
Yep.
And it's like, I don't want my children to hate me
to
by
despise
any means.
You, right.
But there's a little bit of galvanizing them together as siblings, because I plan on that relationship outliving me.
And how many kids do you have?
3.
3. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And they're still young, and they're 4, 2, and 3 months old.
Oh, that's right.
So they're still very young, but I'm like, I'm trying to think well
ahead.
Into the future.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I want their relationship to, how many times have you seen an inheritance tear siblings apart?
Oh, yeah.
Like, what's the point of doing all this work and trying to do all this stuff so I can leave my kids stuff just so it can ruin their relationship? Yeah, it's like.
And, 3 things I know I've been designed for, okay? 3 things I know I've been designed for that I know God created me for. Number 1, it's to be a wife, or number 1 is to be a husband to my wife. Number 2 is to be a father to my children. And number 3 is to be a doctor to my patients. And so when we look at those 3, for me, my life is prioritized essentially around those big 3. One of that being family, because I'm right there, man. It's like it was me, my sister, and my grandma pretty much, and my aunt would come over sometimes for Thanksgiving or Christmas, and it's like people ask me, how many kids do you guys want? I'm like, honestly, as many as we're blessed with. And Grant's a doc in the clinic. He's the one who started the clinic. He was like, so does that mean 10? I'm like, dude, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I think there's fruit in that.
10's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. My palms got sweaty.
Yeah. Whew. Man.
You're at 3 and you're like, well, yeah.
Well, and that's how it happens, right? You have one.
Yep.
And then when you have a newborn, you're like, man, I don't know. I think we're done. Then they get to about a year old and you're like, I don't know if I can handle just like not having any more babies.
Yeah.
Like
who knows, in 10 years, I might, come on the podcast again and might have 8 kids at that time. But like, hey, remember when I said that in the first episode?
You still got 2 more to go. Yeah. I mean, once you get to like 8, you got to go for 10.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I mean, what's
the difference at that point? I'm still driving one of those like cargo vans. Doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. If you've got the seats, like,
might as well fill them.
Yeah. Well, it's a much smaller incremental step, right?
Yeah.
Going from 0 to 1 is huge.
Right.
Like, because there's a massive difference in no baby and baby.
Yep.
A huge life altering, like 0 to 1 is an infinite increase.
Yeah.
Right. Percentage.
Massive.
Yeah.
Massive.
1 to 2, 100% increase. It's a big change.
Okay.
So you're about to have your second, right? It's a big change, but you'll get really close with your first daughter. Because the newborn needs mom.
That makes a lot of sense.
And you'll get a lot more, like that was something I didn't expect, but like I got so close to, I mean, at the time my firstborn was 2 when we had our second. And all of a sudden, like, I'm just with her now, like, all the time. And we got super close. So I'm excited for that for you, because y'all are close already, I'm sure, but like...
Get closer.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. And so it's like, I can see how people end up with a lot of kids because the incremental steps get smaller.
Yeah. In those moments.
Yeah.
Yep. Those moments. We, and we just want to take it day by day with it. I mean, that's how I was.
I was going to ask how your wife feels about.
Oh, my wife is an absolute rock star.
Nice.
Like we, you know, so I've been with my wife for 8 years. Okay. So we've been together since undergrad. We got married 2.5 years ago, going on 3 years. And we have home births. Okay. So we have, like my daughter was born at the foot of our bed.
Yeah.
And it was at that home birth, our first, with our firstborn.
All natural, just in a tub with a
tub.
doula.
We had the tub in the living room and all of that. I was like, wow.
Warrior.
I was like, what do I complain about?
Yeah.
Because and the thing is, interestingly enough, my wife said, so the reason why I'm also tied to the work that I do is because my wife used to suffer from migraines. And what happened is when I started learning this work 5 years ago, I gave her the first adjustment and I saw the lights turn on in her eyes. And it was at that moment I was like, I'm dedicating my entire life work to this. And she said that the migraines that she used to get were actually worse than the birthing pains.
Wow.
That's how bad her migraines were.
Man.
But my wife throughout all of it, man, she is the only reason why I can do what I do. Her and I were actually, she prayed over me before I came here today. And I told her, I was like, I need you to know that behind every strong man is a stronger woman. And if it wasn't for my wife, I don't really talk about my wife a lot. We don't really post our life on social media and stuff like that. But it would be a complete disservice for me to not say that my wife throughout all of this is the only reason why all of this is even possible in terms of the clinic and taking care of patients, the initiative, the vision of 4 to 5 clinics in Arkansas. Like she's the only reason why, she pushes me. She's that's a woman, man. And you could attest to your wife as well. Like the only reason.
Well, I bet her now, because if she watches it, she's going to be like, well, Dr. Cam said, no, yeah, I'm in the same boat. I can't speak highly enough about my wife. And any guys out there that are married, looking to get married, whatever, you will 100% have a new respect for your wife after watching her go through a full pregnancy and then a labor and delivery of a baby.
Totally.
If you've ever had any doubts about how incredibly physically strong and mentally just strong-willed your lady is, any concerns about that will be put to rest after watching them carry. And the miracle itself of all the transformations that happen in their body to literally grow a human, handle all of that, and then physically
do everything else.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's incredible.
Shout out to all the power women out there.
Absolutely.
And I've talked about it before on here, but I consider myself, my wife and I both consider ourselves very lucky because we're now at a place where we're both able to completely pursue our passions and our giftings. And I'm so grateful. Her passions and her giftings provide for the family more than mine do. Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful that they happen to be, she loves being with our children, pouring into them day in and day out.
Yep.
That is a grueling, I don't like calling it a job, but it is a job in the sense of day in and day out. That is what she is pouring all of her mental and physical resources into our children.
Yep.
And I couldn't be more grateful for her doing that.
Which makes an impact for generations to come.
100%.
And it's like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, obviously with her, with the type of work that you do too, she obviously, her fulfilling her role, right, is helping you fulfill yours.
1000%.
And it's like, that's why all of it is connected. All of it is connected 100%. My wife is just as involved in the clinic as I am. And she's just as involved. She's just as big of a part of it. She's just as big a part of talks that I do, podcasts I'm on. She's a part of all of it, right? Whether she's on the podcast or not, she's the one that helps essentially fuel all of it behind it, man.
Yeah. And it makes me sad when I see some of the current cultural stuff that almost makes it not okay. It seemed not okay for my wife and I to live out what happens to be those more traditional gender roles.
Yeah.
I promise you, anybody listening or watching, in no way, shape, or form am I oppressing my wife by like forcing her to stay at home. I honestly really tried to convince her to stay at work. When we had our first kid 4.5 years ago, she was working full-time as a nurse in the NICU at UAMS here in Arkansas.
My wife's a nurse.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
At UAMS.
Really?
Yeah.
Marry a nurse.
Totally. 100%.
Nurses are
100%.
amazing. And she was working full-time nights.
Wow.
So after the first one, we were able to switch her to full-time days. Second, my son was born 2 years after that, and she moved to part-time days.
Okay.
And then when our third one was born, it was like, okay, this is too much. And she stayed at home. But I didn't want her to have any resentment towards me. I was like, because in my mind, I was like, if I was at the house all day, every day with our kids, I am not strong enough to do that. I would grow some resentment towards you because you would be out there like fulfilling your dreams or whatever.
Yep.
So I can't state how grateful I am enough that she's willing to do that so that I can do this.
Yeah. And I think there's something special about, I think there's something really special about that. I think, for the most part, I know women who've said that they've never wanted to have kids, and then by the time they're 40, 45, they wish they would have. And it's, and there's some women out there that genuinely don't want kids. But I think it's, when you look at those, gender roles, you're right. It's not like we're, oppressing our wives or anything of that nature. It's that, so we actually kind of played the opposite for right now. My wife, our whole intention was for her to stay at home. And then what she found is she believes that she has a strong calling in nursing. And so after the birth of our second daughter, she's actually going to go back to the floor full time.
Yeah.
And because, it's 3 days a week, and then be with our kids the other days of the week. And then guess what? In the event that she's like, I actually want to be a full-time, stay at home mom, then you can do that. It's the wide range to just be like, what is it that you want, while at the same time fulfilling our specific roles within the house.
You nailed it. Like, I think that's the point I was trying to make, is like, my wife and I are deliberate about this. It's like, we try to focus on what our giftings and callings are, because like I had a guy, I think it was like a therapist one time. We've been to couples counseling before, and this therapist was like, imagine the issue that maybe you're having with yourself or as a couple, as like as a hot bowl of water.
Yeah.
And you as a husband or you as a wife or whatever, you're a fan trying to frantically cool off that bowl of water, right? And you're expending all of your energy trying to blow air and cool off this bowl of water, right? When the solution could be as simple as putting ice cubes in the water, right? It takes very little effort to grab ice and put it in there. And, the metaphor has holes in it, but, we took that as, okay, there are situations where we have whatever problems going on, bills need to be paid, kids need to be taken care of, food's got to get cooked, dishes got to get washed, laundry's got to be done, whatever. Lawn's got to get mowed.
Yep.
Well, all of these different issues, my wife is ice cubes for some of them, whereas I'm a fan, right?
Wow.
And there are issues where I'm the ice cubes, right? And it's just easier for me to solve that issue than it is for her.
Right.
And because, if we love each other like we say we do, the point of this marriage is for it to be a team.
Yep.
And to improve each other's lives, right? So how do we do that efficiently over time?
Yes.
Well, I solve the issues that I enjoy solving and that fit my talents and gifting, and she does the same. And whatever doesn't get covered, there's some things that we both are terrible at.
Yep.
We do them together.
Yep. You just
we
suck it up.
We try to share the responsibility and do those things together. And then that's a bonding thing in itself. Like,
oh yeah.
Neither of us like, accounting. But there's some household like accounting stuff that's got to get done. And, we just kind of grin and bear it and try to do it together. And through that, like, we both don't like it, but at least we're doing it together. And
I'm interested in what the listeners of the podcast right now are thinking, where they're like, why are these guys talking so much about their wives? Yeah. And the reason why is because, Sean Dill, he's a great business mentor of mine. He says that business problems are actually personal problems in disguise. And so, the reason why, we're so comfortable in the realm of a business, right? Hustle on purpose, talking about our wives is because, if we were having home problems, that translates into business. I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure other, entrepreneurs listening to the podcast.
I've done it. I've brought personal problems into business for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so, it all ties in, because if you have a very strong relationship at home, you'll have a very strong relationship, in your business. And then I know for sure, how I shepherd my household and how my relationship with my wife translates with the other doctors that are in the clinic. So I know that if me and my wife, if we have an excellent relationship, we're able to, problem solve, put ice cubes here, we're a fan here. I really love that analogy. We're able to kind of have our designated roles, and we work on that. That translates into business 100%. 100%.
Absolutely. And the smaller the business, the more it translates.
Yes.
Jeff Bezos's relationship with his wife doesn't affect Amazon as much as my relationship with my wife affects my small business.
That's very true.
Yeah.
I've never thought of that before.
Yeah.
That's very true.
A lot of people out there, if you're a solopreneur, you are your business. Like in a lot of cases, you're even taxed that way. Your solo owner LLC, and your personal taxes just get the government just treats it like it's one thing, one entity, right? Because it's like you are so intertwined in that business. They're inseparable. The business doesn't exist without you, right? It's like you and like those 5 pillars that I talked about earlier with Elva. It's like your business will probably be successful on the same pillars that you are personally successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to those pillars, I think those pillars are, critical. It sounds like very similar to something that I talk about, where it's, there's mental, there's spiritual, there's financial, there's physical, there's relational, and there's business goals. And then on these separate goals, what I do is I have these lifetime goals. And then based on those lifetime goals, and really when I think about lifetime, I think about what are people saying over my grave, right? That's very morbid to think about, but it's, for me, when it comes to those different pillars, what do I want people to say about my mentality?
Write your obituary.
Exactly. Yep. Write your obituary. What do I want people to say about my mentality over my grave mentally? What do I want people to say, how my relationship with God was spiritually? What do I want people to say that my relationship with others was? How did I manage my finances, my business, and everything of that nature? So, and then kind of work your way from lifetime down to, you could do 25 years to 10 years to 5 years, 25, 10, 5, 1, and then 3 months. And then create action points of what am I going to do this week to accomplish each of those. So you can go down that rabbit hole too. But, part of that thing is the relationship aspect. And to me, like the way that I take care of my wife, the way that I treat my wife, the way that I treat my kids, how I respond to that situation. When my daughter's eating and she throws food, like how I respond to that is how I'm going to respond to chaotic environments.
I would never let my kid do that.
You're like terrible.
My kid's never thrown food. Well, and you may be able to echo this as well. Another thing about having kids, and this can be the last thing we say about it, but I've found that having a daughter, like a lot of people before I was horrified. I was an only child, never raised around like a sister.
Okay. Yeah.
I was like, I barely understand my wife. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with a daughter. I don't know how to raise a girl, whatever. But one of the things that I didn't expect, and what I'll tell people, you know, you already got a daughter and you're expecting another. Mm-hmm. But what I'll tell new expecting fathers that I'll talk to, because, you know, they'll be like, you've got 3. Like, how do you
tell me the secrets?
I'll be like, dude, I don't know. But when having a daughter, I understood immediately how better to love my wife. Mm-hmm. Because now it's like almost immediately I just had a completely new perspective on how will I want some other man to love my daughter one day.
Don't I can't even. Oh my goodness.
And it was a real revelation for me, because you can't empathize with like your father-in-law mm-hmm. until you have a daughter.
Yeah.
And at least for me, it was just, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, I already had a big responsibility to my wife, but I really felt it more then. It was like, because now I also have the responsibility to my daughter to show her right. Not only what a good father looks like, but what a good husband should look like.
Yeah. Because what we're doing now is we are emulating the type of man that we want our daughters to marry.
And that's horrifying.
Yeah. It's scary,
right.
brother.
Yeah.
But it has made me a better, you know, to echo your point. Yeah. I mean, it's made me a better husband as well.
Well, good. Cause it's going to push you one of those directions.
Yep.
It's going to push you like, well, you know, I'll never live up to that standard. Why try? Or
see, I've never even thought of it. Yeah.
Right. But some people do.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, some people, whether it's a conscious thought or not, but if I'm of the belief, if you're not having the conscious thought of trying to do it, then you're it's naturally just going to go the negative way.
Right.
Right. Like if you're not making the conscious effort, it's just entropy, right? Like it just,
it's a cascade down.
Right. Yeah.
And you have to have that. You have to have that mentality of like, it's so, I've never thought of like the contrary. It's always like, you know, how can I be better? Which can sometimes be destructive as well. You know, having that mentality of like always constantly trying to be better. But which is why I love the name of your podcast, Hustle on Purpose. Mm-hmm. When we talked about that at Guillermo's, I was like, you know, why hustle on purpose? You said, because we live in a culture where everyone's hustle, grind, get to it, right?
The hustle needs no explanation.
Yep. Yeah. But having on purpose, like we're hustling on purpose. And it's the same thing in marriage, same thing in, same thing in fatherhood, same thing in business. Like I'm hustling with a purpose. I'm hustling with my daughter to be with the purpose and intention of her marrying a man that's better than I am. Right.
Yes.
Where it's like, I'm holding the standard and I want her standards to be higher based on what she sees me hustling for with the intention behind her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah. They can't sustain without the other.
Yep.
Hustle without purpose is busyness. Right. Purpose without hustle is
a dream.
Fruitless.
Yeah. Yeah. Fruitless.
Yeah. You have to have both. And they have to be, you know, somewhat balanced out, not evenly balanced all the time.
Right.
You can focus sometimes like the bills just have to get paid. I got to buckle down and hustle. Right. Sometimes like the bills have been paid. There's some money left over. Let's like throw some money towards purpose.
Yep.
But it all comes down to intentionality. And I wanted to tie that back into the points you were making about, you know, kind of tying into the different pillars and setting long-term goals and reverse engineering that, breaking it down. I've done that. And it's to anybody listening that finds themselves like in a place like maybe I did in my early 20s, where I was just like, I felt like everybody else their career path was already plotted out. They were, you know, they were already successful and I was still trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I was behind, and I was dating the woman that's now my wife. And I was having all these thoughts of like, I'm just going to drag her down with me. Like she deserves better than that. Like she deserves better than some guy that doesn't know what he's doing. And, but you sit down and you come up with where you want to get to, and even work it down to the smallest actionable step of what can I do in these 5-6 different sectors this week, this month, this quarter, that just move the needle towards that a little bit.
Yeah, man.
The time's going to pass anyways, and you will be shocked if you do that consistently, how much it will compound.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be shocked. I mean, I had heard people say it, and there's also some real power, I believe, in like writing it down.
Yes.
And it sounds silly. People will be like, what do you mean? Like, what's the difference between writing it down and saying it in my head? I don't know.
Yeah. I am of the belief you have to write it down. You have to write it down.
And I'm also of the belief, just because I've experienced it, I don't want this to sound hyperbolic, but it will change your life.
Yeah.
Like I stand on that. I will tell anybody, because personally I've seen it happen.
Yep.
And it's wild. I can't explain it to you. I think it's a God thing.
Yep.
But I would just encourage anybody out there that's feeling lost, action over everything, the smallest amount of consistent action over a long enough time, you will be blown away at where you get to.
Yep. For people who are visionaries, like, I mean, you and I are probably both really big visionaries, right? Where it's like, we see where we want to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can kind of get lost in where it is that we want to go, that we forget to reverse engineer it, which is why me personally, like, I have to write it down.
Yeah.
And then even more, to take it to the next level, like sitting down with my wife and doing it personally, but also doing it together. And then as a clinic, right? So there's 3 docs in the clinic. There's me, Dr. Grant Dennis, and Dr. Chris Brown. We do the same thing where we have, our personal mission and vision, personal mission and vision, clinical mission and vision, and then our franchise mission and vision of what we want to scale, and then continuing to grow from that. But there's power in not only doing it yourself, but doing it within people who are, trying to grow something. Like, you for this podcast, for example, like you guys have a mission and vision behind this podcast, and that's why it's, taking off the way it is. So there's power in writing it down.
Yeah.
There's a lot of power in writing it down.
It's weird. And when you experience it for the first time, you stick with it long enough to see the results. It's weird.
Yeah. David Meltzer, he's a very successful businessman.
Real estate.
Yeah.
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 I know.
Yeah.
I don't know him.
Yeah.
Know him.
Yeah.
I have his book.
Yeah.
He has like a little book. I have it.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I could, so I know him, or I don't know him personally, but my business mentor, Sean, is like, they're like best friends.
Really?
Yeah. Sean and David. Yeah. They're cool. They're best friends.
Yeah. Awesome.
He, he says time is the independent variable, where it's like, we think, I can, especially when we write it down, there's power in this. And I've done it when I've gone back. You look at what you've stated, when I was 20 years old, and then by 30, I'm going to do this, and be like, wait, I achieved that at, 25. Like I thought 30 was the thing. And then now, now it kind of just keeps stacking on from that point. But yeah, you have to write your goals down.
Yeah.
I had a great buddy of mine in chiropractic college that told me that, cause he was like, what is it you're trying to achieve? And I told him, I was like, I want to, have a clinic, and I want to see this many patients, and I want to help this many people, this many conditions. He's like, and did you write that down? I looked at him dead in his face. I was like, no. And he's like, then you're not going to do it.
Yeah. It's dude, it sounds so harsh, but like, I'll give you an example. In January, common goal writing month, right? I wrote down, sitting there talking to my wife, I told her, January of 2019, this is the year we buy our first investment property.
Yes.
I was doing it at a pretty decent scale for other people. And I was like, this is the year we start
building your dynasty.
Yeah. And we'll get our first one and we'll go from there. September of 2019 rolls around. Still don't have one. Tried and tried and tried. Ended the calendar year of 2019 with 12. And it's like, still to this day, it's still like wild to me. But like, that's
awesome.
That I attribute a lot of that to setting that goal, doing 9 months of what felt like making no progress.
Yep.
Focusing a lot of time and energy, but because I had said the goal, I had written it down, I was going to do it. It stayed at the forefront of my mind, is like putting it into the universe, praying about it. Feeling disheartened, had tons of deals just like not work out. And then like several crazy things happened, but
what kept you consistent through that? I'm always interested in always interested in people who, you know, have that, don't see the fruit of it. Cause I mean, you got to think, September was that 9 months in and nothing, although you've tried. So what kept you, you know, what kind of kept you consistent through that and helped you kind of push through that wall? Because the thing is, if you would have stopped in September, you wouldn't have had 12 in December.
Right.
And so what's interesting is in those 3 months, you know, something had to have happened, but what kept you consistent from January all the way through December?
That's a really good question. Insanity, probably.
Yep.
There's, you know, you got to have a little tinge of like craziness in there. A lot of it was, I mean, I was doing it professionally. I mean, so I was physically inside of, you know, over 100 single family homes a month, looking at potential deals, analyzing them for a large investment company I was working for, overseeing a team of project managers, handling, you know, 60 to 90 renovations at a time. And so it was always like on the forefront of my mind. That was helpful. That was part of it.
Yeah.
And just knowing, I mean, I felt called and convicted that I was supposed to do it, which helps as well. And having faith that, okay, well, if I'm supposed to do it, then like
the fruit's there.
The God will open the door when it's supposed to happen. And he did. And it's just pretty wild. And one of the reasons my faith has gotten stronger as I've gotten older is because I now, each passing day, month, quarter, year, I have more and more references of times to look back and say, well, God was faithful then, he'll
do it again.
Right. Yep. It's like, I mean, dude, by the time I'm like 70, 80 years old, I'm gonna be one faithful son of a gun.
You said it just compounds.
Right. Yeah. It's like, well, I just have more and more insurmountable proof that
you're covered.
Right. And if I'm not, it's for a reason.
Yep.
You know, being fellow members of the, you know, the early dead parent society.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, I wrestled a lot with my faith over that.
Absolutely.
It's really hard to come to terms with the fact that a parent or somebody or anybody close to you had to die.
Yeah.
And
been there.
If they had to die to serve part of God's plan.
Right.
Why?
Yep.
And like, it can push you towards shaking your fist at God and saying, why?
Totally.
But I would encourage people to not waste the lesson. Because I think you're doing a disservice to the legacy of that person.
Yep.
And this doesn't just have to come from like a death. It can come from any lesson,
hardship
in life.
Yeah. Any lesson, any hardship.
Take the lesson.
Yep.
Because that is doing the hardship the service it deserves.
There's blessing in the lesson.
Yes.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. There's blessing in the lesson, and there's also treasure in the testimony. You know,
exactly.
Where it's like, you know, the testimony behind it. I was there too, man. Where I was, you know, 10 years old. I was like, you know, I didn't grow up in church or anything, but I was like, you know, how, if there is a God, how does it even make sense that like he would take my mother, right? And I think that's part of, you know, what I know now is part of it is the sovereignty, right? That's an attribute of God, is the sovereignty of God, where it's like being the all-knowing, all-seeing, everything compounding in the entire universe. Think about it. We what it's like we only know like 1% or 2% of the entire universe or something like that. And it's like, we don't question the other 98% of the universe that we can't see. And it's the same thing where it's like, I translate it to my life where it's like, I don't have to understand everything. And I've tried to put the pieces to that. But what I do know is that the lessons inside of it have genuinely perpetuated to my growth. And I had to grow up really fast because of it. I had to grow up really fast because of it. But there was a lot of treasure in that testimony for sure.
Yeah. Well, and now it brings so much meaning and purpose to your life.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it sounds kind of like a sick, twisted thing to say,
right.
But it's like, it's beautiful to me to take something that can and has been such a devastating thing and turn it into something meaningful and purposeful.
Yep. And it's our perception of it where it's like, it could be something extremely, and I've been on both realms where like I saw it as it's something extremely devastating to where I essentially, especially coming off team meeting last week, man, we were talking about if you want to change your belief, simply just change it. Where it's like, I went from one moment thinking like, oh my goodness, like how could this ever happen? I was so upset about it, to being like, well, maybe there's purpose in this. Right.
Yeah.
And maybe there's intention behind it. And it's like, it's true. I genuinely can say I would not be the person today if it was not for the things that I've been through, well beyond just my mom, but if it wasn't the things that I've been through throughout childhood that kind of forged me into the person that I am today and the person that I'm going to become.
Right. Well, and you've done the work to do all of the tragedy to flip it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like through effort and intentionality. I mean, this is kind of what we're talking about with like the name of the podcast and everything. It's like almost anything can be overcome and turned into a positive through hard work, intentionality, and prayer.
Yep.
It's like, if you've got those three things, like I just firmly believe that like you can do it.
Yep. And that's that in a good way dangerous, but that's a very dangerous person. A person who has intention, a person who has prayer, and a person who has essentially function behind their way of living. Yeah. I mean, that person is going to make an impact. That
is all I hope for my children.
Yeah.
If I can instill those things, I've done an outstanding job. And
part of it is, so in terms of, obviously in the beginning we talked about Happier, Healthier Arkansas, right?
I do want to get into like some of what y'all do at the clinic.
That's totally fine. No,
I took it off the rails.
No, but in terms of Happier, Healthier Arkansas, it goes into exactly what we're talking about. The term happier and healthier, where did that come from? I was in Key West, Florida. Okay. I was there for a month. I was studying poetry, believe it or not. Ernest Hemingway. He's big. Yeah.
When was this?
This was 2000.
This was during your like acid phase.
Yeah, right.
Like Steve Jobs or whatever had like a psychedelic phase.
Yep, yeah. I went, when was this?
Very straight edge, but then there was this 1 month in Key West. I just got really high and went and studied poetry.
Yep.
Got it out of my system, came back, and everything's been fine.
Studied Ernest Hemingway for like a month, man. It was kind of crazy.
Okay.
But it was in 2018.
Okay.
I went to Key West, Florida. This changed my life forever. Okay. This really is what changed my perspective. So I went to Key West, Florida. I was there studying Ernest Hemingway, and I was not functioning well when I went to Key West. Okay. And what happened is I wanted to go to Key West, get away, and my intention in going to Key West was actually to break up with my girlfriend, which is not my wife at the time, right? So I was going to go.
It's the same. Yeah.
So my girlfriend, and then now my wife. I was going to break up with her.
Oh wow.
Okay. And what was happening?
So y'all went together?
No, I went by myself.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like with the class. It was like I went with like other students and stuff like that. So I went and I was like, I'm just going to go. I'm taking this time to myself, and I'm just going to relax. I sat in the pool. We stayed at a very nice house. So I stayed in the pool. It was just me outside. And what happened is I was sitting there in the pool like this. And my eyes were open and I was looking at the sun, and the trees were covering and the sun was coming up. Okay. The sun was coming up. Then as the sun was coming up, I literally went it was like I went blind. I can't make this up. So I went blind, And it was like, I started seeing these different visions, and it started taking me throughout. The first one was me finishing chiropractic college and speaking on a stage. And I've done that. I've spoke, largest stage that I spoke on in chiropractic college. I forgot how many people were there. But it was a lot of people, and it was the same thing as that vision. Okay. Oof. Yeah. And then what happened is it showed me graduating. And then what happened is it showed the first birth of our daughter. I knew we were having a girl.
Wow.
And then essentially took me through all these different visions. And the last vision I had, I was 90 years old. Okay. I was old. I was still like, fit, and everything was like, it was sweet. And I was sitting there, this old man rocking in a chair, and I was looking down. We were at what I would say was my house, and I was on like my balcony on the second floor, and I was looking down in my rocking chair just like this. And I saw my kids, they were like older, 60.
Yeah.
I saw my kids, I saw my grandkids, and I saw my great grandkids just all out there playing, huge family. And during this vision, I looked to my right. I'm getting chills thinking about it. But I looked to my right, and it was Megan, my wife.
Yeah.
And she reached and she touched my hand, and she smiled, and she looked at me and she said, "It's all going to be worth it."
Wow.
She said, yeah, man. And yep, she was like, "It's all going to be worth it." And when she said that, I then found a couple months later, I found the journal of my mother, as I was talking about. Okay. Yeah. I found that journal of my mom, and in there, her specific message to me personally, was to live a long, happy, healthy life, enjoying the pleasures that it has, keep God first, and be a blessing to others. And so that term, happier and healthier, our personal mission as a family is to live a long, happy, and healthy life as a family unit for generations to come. And so essentially I took the happier and healthier in our family and just translated it to a greater scale in the state of Arkansas, which is where happier, healthier Arkansas came from.
Wow.
Yep. That vision is what gets me through.
Yeah.
That vision is what, and then you coupled that vision of my wife and I, she touched my hand and, smiled and said, "It's all going to be worth it." And then coupled with, a month later, I find this journal saying from my mother who passed away, saying to live a long, happy, healthy life. It all just correlated to knowing and understanding that I'm exactly what I need to be doing. I'm exactly where I need to be going. And it's going to take work, but just keep being consistent with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so obviously coming back from Key West,
you didn't break up.
I didn't break up with my wife. Yeah. I didn't break up with my girlfriend. Yeah. I was like, actually,
we're going to stay together until we're 90.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And, that was a critical moment.
So you've obviously told her since that you planned on breaking up with her.
Yeah. My wife knows literally everything. Yeah, she knows everything. And so I told her that I told her on that day, or when I came back, I told her, I was like, I was going to break up with you, but I'm sorry for, who I was. I want to change. And that's exactly what happened is we just ended up staying together, and we just continue to forge our relationship. And that's, 8 years.
It's that mind shift thing. Yeah, like you said, it's like once you believe it,
yep, you
can make it. So
it's the belief. It's the belief, and you just shift the belief. One moment I'm thinking I'm going to break up with my girlfriend. The next moment, I'm like, no, I'm going to be with this woman forever. Yeah. And then it was that same summer I found God and stuff like that. It was a crazy transition from that, just from Key West.
Wow.
And that's
psychedelics, man.
Yeah. Acid, man.
You got your whole life to thank for somebody slipping you some hallucinogens. I'm just kidding.
I know.
Oh man, that is what an incredible story. I did want to get into some of like
for sure.
Some of the actual stuff that y'all do at the clinic, because I'm really interested about that. Because like you said, it's like you need to, for a happier, healthier Arkansas, you have to do some of both.
Totally.
And it's common across no matter what you're doing. Whatever industry you're in, it's like you have to be pushing for the change you want to see.
Yep.
And then also you've got patients you got to go see today. So it's like you have to do a bit of both. You can do the podcast and get the mission and the vision out there.
Of course.
Then you still got to go
do it.
Actually help the people. Right. So tell us a little bit about what y'all do at it's the Specific Chiropractic Clinic.
Yep. So the term chiropractic. Okay. When I say the term chiropractic, TikTok has done a really good job at putting this perception into people's minds.
Right. Can you pop my back?
Pop my back, snap my neck, do all of that. Yeah. It's the same thing. I saw that you did a video where it's like you reacted to, TikTok, real estate.
Yeah.
And it's
you need to do that on chiropractic stuff.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make an action point to do that.
Yeah.
But when we heard that term chiropractic is actually an umbrella term. So if I were to come to you and I were to say I was an MD, you would ask me, well, what kind of MD are you? Are you a neurologist, a cardiologist, a family practice?
Right.
Chiropractic is the same thing, where we have functional chiropractic and we have structural chiropractic.
Okay.
Structural chiropractic is what a majority of people think about when they hear the term chiropractor. Full spine, bones, rack them, stack them, crack them, do all of that. Mm-hmm. And then there's a functional piece. So the type of work that we do at the Specific Chiropractic Centers, less than 1% of doctors actually, not only doctors, but chiropractors, less than 1% of chiropractors actually practice the work. And it's because, honestly, quite frankly, it's hard. It's very, very hard. It takes a lot of training. And the type of cases that we see, other docs in the area will actually refer to us the complicated cases.
Yeah.
The difference is, our big thing is we want to check the function of the nervous system and make sure the nervous system is functioning properly. So we have this little tool, okay, that we use. This tool that we use, we run it up the spine, and it's called computerized infrared thermography.
Externally?
Yeah, well, it's infrared, so it looks, it penetrates into the capillary beds of the skin, infrared-wise, no like prongs.
Right.
But, it'll measure the surface, or it'll measure the temperature of the capillaries, and then present it onto the screen based on what the sympathetic nervous system is responding to as we run that scan.
Okay.
That scan will give us a pattern or a graph, and that graph will allow me to be able to see, is the nervous system functioning or is it not functioning? If it's not functioning, that's where we administer an adjustment. If it is functioning, that's where we leave it alone. And it all stems from the upper neck, okay? So the upper neck is essentially the control center of everything because the brainstem has to go through there. We have our brain, we have our body, and then we have our brainstem, which is what sends the information from our brain to the body, and which is what receives information from the external up into the brain to perceive it.
Yeah.
Every single cell, tissue, and organ is registered from the brainstem. So the question becomes, well, what causes nervous system problems over time? And it's three different things. It's physical stressors, chemical stressors, and emotional stressors. And what'll happen is
that checks out.
Yep. Yeah. You're like, yep. Yeah. When we put these three different things onto the system over a prolonged period of time, the nervous system ends up collapsing on itself to where essentially chronic conditions will start to come up. A majority of the cases that we see, they're called idiopathic conditions. Now, what that means is
doesn't sound very nice.
Yeah, I know, and it's honestly, and it's not, because idiopathic means we have no idea where it's coming from. I have patients that have literally told me that doctors said it's all in their head. And it's because they can run all these different tests, but everything comes back negative. So they get labeled with fibromyalgia, they get labeled with an autoimmune condition, they get labeled with migraines.
Right.
And they leave with no results. They just leave with a medication prescription.
Well, because a lot of these doctors are put in a box where they either have to say, it's all in your head, or I don't know.
Yeah.
And a lot of humans in general are not comfortable with saying, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't figure it out. I'm too ignorant.
Yep.
To, we don't have the knowledge. I don't have the whatever.
To know and understand it. Right. Which is why, the initiative comes into play of holistic health practitioners, because we all understand that we all play a mission and vision behind, making a person well. Mm-hmm. And so this upper neck misalignment can cause abnormal signaling from the brain to the rest of the body, which is what will cause one to experience pain over a prolonged period of time. Which is why if you ask someone who suffered from migraines, I just talked to someone yesterday, she suffered from migraines for 30 plus years. And I said, the migraines you're experiencing now are probably worse than when they first started. She was like, absolutely. I used to just take ibuprofen, and now I'm taking, I'm on Topamax. And it's because the problem is still there, but it's just getting worse. So, right. For example, if you and I were...
Because ibuprofen doesn't address...
The cause.
The cause.
Yep.
Right.
Brother, if you and I were sitting in here, doing this podcast, and the fire alarm started screaming off and we saw smoke coming from this door.
Right.
Okay, so we know that there's a fire. And I said, GT, just give me 1 second. Got a ladder, climbed up there, took out the battery, and was like,
fire's gone.
And kept doing the podcast, right? And just kept going on with it. By the time I sat back down in this seat, you guys would be out the door,
right?
Because we know that there's an actual fire going on,
right? And it's that's a perfect analogy.
Yeah, it's the same thing inside of the human body, where our body doesn't know the difference between an external fire alarm or an internal fire alarm. And so I actually I take care of a little kid. The kid was like, "Oh, so you're a firefighter of the nervous system?" I said, "Exactly. What I have to do is I have to go in, I have to pull you out of the fire, and then I have to go in and put out that fire." And that fire is that signaling that's going off is the nervous system, and that's causing fire to continue to get worse over time, which is causing this building known as our bodies to essentially collapse on itself. Because it always starts with just, "Oh, I have arm pain or neuropathy."
Yeah.
And then it goes, "I have neuropathy and migraines." And then it goes, "I have neuropathy, migraines, and IBS." And then the conditions just keep getting worse. And what the current
they keep giving you more different medicines.
Yep. And what the current system is doing is the current system is saying, "Oh, the arm pain is different than the headaches are different than the IBS." But the reality is, what if they're all actually connected? And so we go to these different parts doctors. We go to the heart doctor. We go to the lung doctor. We go to all these different doctors. But what if we went to a practitioner that focuses on the systems that control all of those parts? That's what the Specific Chiropractic Centers is.
What a great explanation. I'm immediately like, I have two women in my life that I need to recommend to you. Cause they've got some chronic stuff, and they've both been kind of told it's all in your head.
Yep.
And as somebody that knows and loves both of them, I can promise you they're not making this up.
Yep.
Like, no one would choose to live the life they're living because it's all in their head.
By the time people sit across from me in my office, okay, by the time people sit across from me, almost all hope is lost. I have
You're
this
like
lady.
The last ditch effort.
I have a lady that she went all the way to Cleveland Clinic. She went all the way to Mayo Clinic, exhausted her finances and time to literally sit across from me. And she asked me, "How are you any different than the professionals that I've went to?" And I looked at her and I said, "Because I'm the only one that's saying it's not all in your head. The only one that's saying it's all in your head." I have this one patient that went to Mayo Clinic, went through their whole migraine program to sit down across from the doctor. He was like, "We found the issue. You just got to drink more water." And she was like, I slam a gallon a day already.
How much water do you want me to drink?
Goodness. Sure enough, it wasn't coming from a lack of dehydration. It was coming from a fact that her nervous system couldn't coordinate the signals to her brain to control the constriction to let go of those migraines. Yeah. So I'm very passionate about what I do. I actually work a lot with MDs and other nurse practitioners and stuff because they understand the concept of this type of functional chiropractic versus just the structural approach.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, where a lot of MDs get turned off when we try to have a conversation with them, they get turned off with the fact that we're labeled as chiropractors. So they're like, "Oh, the chiropractic can't help." But if they take a time to sit down to be able to talk with me and understand what the process looks like, they would see that everything is actually scientific. Everything is very data specific. And most importantly, people don't even get adjusted every visit. If you have to get adjusted every single time you go to the chiropractor, that would be like going to the dentist every single time and needing a cavity. You should be holding your cavity. You should be holding your adjustment. Because if you have to keep getting adjusted every single time you come in, then the issue that you're coming in for, I'm never actually addressing it because I have to fix it every single time.
Right.
And so the problem, the biggest difference, the power doesn't come from the adjustment. The power comes from holding your adjustment. And the only way for us to determine if you're holding your adjustment is to have an objective measure to be able to determine and measure how your system is functioning and if it's ready to receive an adjustment that day.
Yeah, because you want these people to sustain it. Like
Absolutely.
You want you want them to not. You want to be able to help them.
Totally.
But not to have them become completely reliant on you.
Exactly. I let people know in the beginning of care, I want to see you way less in the clinic and way more out in the community. If I have to see you more in the clinic than I see you in the community, I have not done my job.
Right.
Because most of the people that come into the clinic, they're they stay isolated inside and stuff like that because they're nervous to go outside because of the pain that they're experiencing, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you're having migraines that are worse than childbirth,
yeah,
like you probably just want to sit in a
dark room,
quiet room.
Yep. And if you have fibromyalgia that's going throughout your entire body, you'd rather just sit in a recliner all day because any single movement that you make is going to cause your entire body to go into a flare up.
Yeah.
And so throughout the entire care process, we're looking at those three things: chemical, physical, and emotional stressors. And then we're increasing the body's response to stress, and then decreasing your body's stress response, so that way when stressors come into the system, they're not impacting the body like they used to.
Man, yeah, you explain it.
I've explained it
I can tell that you've but it's great because you've got it.
Yeah.
You've got it down. It's very concise, and even for somebody that is as non-medical as you can get. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I have a wife that's a nurse,
right?
But when she talks to me, it's like Chinese, right? Yep. Like, you know, she has to dumb it down. We can talk about real estate, and I can throw acronyms at you till you know you go blue in the face. But yeah, it sounds amazing. So this may be like a little bit in the weeds, but I'm just like curious. So since it's chiropractic, but it's not.
Right.
Like insurance wise, how does that work? Like it's
a great question.
Lumped under.
Yep. It's a great question. So we're not in a network with any insurance companies.
Okay.
And the reason why I let people, and I'm very transparent and open about this.
Yeah.
If I took insurance, I would be rich because I could bill for the conversation. I could bill for every single adjustment that I do. Mm-hmm. I could bill for the chairs that I put people on. We decided to elect out of the insurance realm because I didn't want to be dictated on what an insurance company would let me do, or would not let me do.
Yeah.
And so when you look at care, you know, it's an all-inclusive care plan. It includes obviously our conversation. It includes when you get tested every single visit. It includes when you get adjusted. It includes when you're resting in the resting chairs. Mm-hmm. It's all one inclusive fee. So
and transparent.
Yeah. Oh, very transparent. Yeah. We're very, very, very transparent. And when we get phone calls, you know, most of the time the insurance model has already failed people.
Right.
I've been down that route. Most of the conversations that we have is people are like, I'm guessing this isn't covered by insurance. And we're like, no, we're not networked with any insurance companies. And the reason why is because of that. Because an insurance company, let's say I'm recommending someone 30 visits. That'd be a long care plan. But let's say I'm recommending someone 30 visits. Insurance says we're only going to cover 10 visits. So we have 20 visits that the patient's going to be responsible for anyway. In the insurance model, if you take insurance, what's going to happen is that patient's going to show up for 10 visits because that's all the insurance company will cover.
Right.
And then what'll happen is they're not getting the long-term results because they didn't commit to the entire process. The whole thing. Therefore, my reputation's on the line because they didn't get better. And so by not taking insurance, it allows us to be very transparent with our pricing. It allows us to be very transparent in our process. And it allows us to not put our reputation on the line and get the long-term results that people deserve. It's
a bold decision.
Very.
But I always admire people that choose to take a risk and stay in control of their product, service, whatever.
Yep.
Because anybody that's ever been to like a doctor understands that your insurance dictates your healthcare. And it's I don't want to get into a conversation on like health insurance reform because I'm too ignorant on it to talk about it.
Right.
I just know from like personal experience of having health insurance under several different employers, being with my wife's health insurance at different times. And then now that neither of us are technically employed, we have private health insurance and it's ridiculously expensive for substantially worse plan than we had under my wife's insurance. It's like,
and what's really unfortunate about the model is, so we have so Dr. Chris Brown, he's one of the docs in the clinic as well.
Chris Brown.
I know, it's really cool. Nice. He's awesome.
Can he dance?
He can't dance. No, he can't dance and he can't sing, but he's an awesome man.
All right.
We, and all three of us in the clinic, me, Grant, and Chris, we're all brothers. Yeah. They're the brothers I've never had, man. They're awesome. But, you know, Chris, he actually had an incident where he had a piece of rib stuck in his throat. He was eating like a rib, like rib meat.
Yikes.
And he got a piece of rib stuck in his throat. So he went to Baptist Hospital. Okay. And when he went there, they took care of him and stuff like that. But not once did they ever let him know how expensive it's going to be and things of that nature. He just goes throughout the process, and we're all in the clinic one day taking care of patients, and he gets a bill for $14,000. And Chris was like, bro, what? And he was there for like 3 or 4 hours. And so that's why in the current model, what happens is people just get a bill. And if we took insurance, that's what would happen. People would come in and they would just get a bill in the mail for the remainder 20 visits out of the 30 visit care plan that they're responsible for. Mm-hmm. We did not want to do that because personally, we believe it's unethical. We want people to be able to know up front what it looks like, because we want people to not have a question in their head. Oh, can I afford it? Can I not afford it? Who knows? I'll just get the bill in the mail. We want people to know up front what it looks like based on the condition that they have. Yep.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a bolder decision, but I definitely like the intentionality and like the reasons behind it.
Yeah.
You're not allowing the insurance companies to dictate how you operate your business, how you provide care.
Yep.
And I'm sure it also allows you, if you have somebody that needs the care and simply can't afford it, you as a clinic have the freedom as a business to come up with
something unique,
creative ways to help that person.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean that you're denying care to people that need it because they don't have insurance. It's simply, we want to provide care a certain way and be transparent about it. And having insurance companies involved really complicates things and doesn't allow us to do that the way we want to do it.
And it's one of those things you've probably seen it in your realm, but when you pay attention. Like when you put something down, you pay attention to it and you commit to the process.
Yeah, that's true.
We have a very high success rate. Okay, just over 90%. We have a very high success rate in our clinic, and the reason why is because the commitment. People are extremely good at committing to care. And I let people know 2 things. If you want to get results out of the care plan, all I need is 2 things from you. Number 1, show up to the appointments.
Yeah.
Number 2, trust me. If you trust me when I say that you have to be adjusted, trust me when I say you don't have to be adjusted. And if you do those 2 things, show up to your appointments and just trust me, we're going to see results.
Yeah.
Even if we talk about supplemental things like, stuff to do at home or, through like some, in the mental realm, talking about some mindset and stuff like that around their condition. Even if they don't do anything that we talk about, if they just show up and trust me, they're going to get results.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who would you say what's like your target audience or demographic? If somebody's listening to this, and some people, this will ring a bell. They'll be like, oh my God, I didn't know this kind of care existed. Cause I sure didn't.
Right.
And when you're facing these kind of health issues, it's so easy to fall down the internet rabbit hole and learn about all different kinds of treatments. And WebMD says you're already dead.
Yep.
It's like
you're having you're having an aneurysm or something.
Never WebMD like any of your issues, because it's just like, according to this, like you died 3 months ago. How are you even Googling this kind of thing? My target market or my ideal client, right? Her name's Crystal. She's 45 years old, and she has kids that are, in high school, independent. They're involved in sports and stuff like that, and she's actively involved in her church as well. What's happened is her chronic health condition, albeit migraines, autoimmune condition, whatever, has caused her to miss out on her family activities. It's caused her to miss out on her. It's caused her to miss out on the games that her children are participating in, whether it be football, volleyball, and it's most importantly impacted her ability to be a wife to her husband. Now, her husband is extremely supportive. Okay, her husband is extremely supportive. What's her husband's name?
Let's call it Jim. Yeah,
I
don't know the husband's name. Yeah,
you haven't gone that deep with your avatar yet.
But when it comes to Jim, he's extremely supportive of his wife. Shows up with her and asks a ton of questions and is willing to do anything to get his wife back. And when it comes to Crystal's been everywhere and tried everything when it comes to her health, but she's extremely open to trying one last thing, which is the Specific Chiropractic Centers. She comes in, she asks a ton of questions, which is a good thing. I'm not one of those doctors that's afraid of questions.
Yeah.
She asks a ton of questions, and she makes sure that she's in the right place, and we comfort her in letting her know that she's in the right place. What we do is we get started. Once we get started, at the end of care, she's literally sitting in that same chair we had an initial conversation with. And she says, why didn't anyone tell me about this sooner? So then she goes out and tells more people and essentially, you know, creates more raving fans of what it is that we do.
And you're one step closer to a happier, healthier Arkansas. One
person at a time. And if I can impact her, then I impact her marriage, which I impact her husband. And then her husband, you know, if he's involved in business and stuff like that, will take care of, you know, that impacts people because, you know, their personal problems are being taken care of. It impacts her kids and the ability that they're going to make. And so I love the fruit of what we do. And the fruit of what we do, typically, it's not even just, you know, Crystal who we take care of, but it's also the impact that we make by taking care of her alone. She's able to get back in church, right? Sing in the choir or open the door, you know, be a greeter, whatever it is that she wants to do. She's able to go to the football games. She's able to be a wife to her husband and, you know, and continue to flourish in this thing called life.
Yeah. I mean, the impact, the ripple effect of that through space and time is incredible.
Yep.
That's awesome, man. I love that you've got your specific avatar. And, I mean, you're a very intentional person, and it's frankly very refreshing. I hope a little bit of it like rubs off on me because it is not the normal state of people these days. It's very loosey-goosey out there.
Yep. I love it.
I've got, like I said, I've got a couple of people I need to refer to you because there's a couple of people I know that are dealing with some stuff and some chronic health stuff that they're kind of in that boat, like you said. They've tried everything.
What's next?
They've tried all the medications, the treatments, the traveling, the whatever, and it's just kind of been labeled as it's in their head.
It's in their head. You just got to live with it the rest of your life.
Yeah,
and it's like. I want to leave people with this. If you were once healthy, then you can be healthy. Like when I give workshops and stuff like that, I'll ask people, I'll say, go ahead and raise your hand if you believe that our bodies are designed to heal itself. Raise your hand if you believe that our bodies are designed to be healthy. Every single person, whether it's a stadium or a room of 20 people, will raise their hands. And then I say, then why does the body ever get sick? And then that's where we start to, you know, to go into it. But if the body was once healthy, it can continue to be healthy. I don't buy into the philosophy that the older you get, the worse off you are. Like, and obviously we're going to be limited to stuff the older that we get.
Yeah.
But in terms of living, we should be able to live a sustainable life from birth to death.
Yeah. Your bodies are designed to do it.
Yep.
Stuff just gets messed up along the way.
Yep.
It can get fixed.
Yep. Beaten, bruised, and scarred.
Yeah. You just got to go see the firefighter of the central nervous system or whatever it was.
Yeah. The firefighter of the central nervous system. Yeah.
Dude, this was so great. I really appreciate you coming.
It really was.
Love your mission. Love your vision. Happy to have you and your family in Arkansas. Excited for your newborn on the way. I assume we didn't get a text saying labor's happening.
Yep. I told her, I was like, you know, I'm going to do a podcast. My phone's on Do Not Disturb.
Don't have the baby.
Yeah. I was like, if you are, just give me a call. I'll see it. And then I'll head on back home, but no text or call. So as it stands right now, no baby girl is on the way.
Well, praying for happy, healthy, easy labor and delivery there.
Amen, brother. Thank you.
Excited for you and your family. And like I said, happy to have you in Arkansas. So go check out Dr. Cam at the Specific Chiropractic Clinic. Just an awesome dude, just doing a lot of great work. And if you find yourself in that, what would you say, predicament?
Yeah.
You have a health issue that you're just kind of at the end of your rope with, go check him out. We'll have his contact stuff down in the description and all that. All of you that are listening, thank you for listening. Check us out on YouTube where you can watch us. If you're watching, you can check us out wherever you get your podcasts as well. Thank you for checking us out. My name's GT Eichert, and this has been Hustle on Purpose. See you next time. Thanks for watching. If you liked that video as much as we liked making it, be sure to check out another one. You've got one here. You got another one over here. If you want to listen to the podcast audio only, go check out the Spotify link in the description. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. It helps us out a ton. And please hit the bell if you want notifications anytime we drop a new video. Hope to see you on the next one.